Here, so with us he was not very rude, but generally he was a bit rough.
Right.
But with us he was very polite. When we just reached near, so he looked at us, so then pointed out and asked, without our telling them we are Ramdi, Mirza Sahab in Punjabi, in his dialect, Mirza Sahab आजकल क्या कर रहे हैं? Then he himself.
That's not Punjabi.
This was the theme, sir. In Punjabi.
Yes, all right. Yes.
So then he himself.
You had to translate Punjabi in Urdu, why not in English?
So, sir, then he himself remarked, I can't repeat those words which my father.
Yes, yes.
जो कुछ कर रहे हैं बहुत ठीक कर.
I see.
Then you see, then he said, he took something about it, then he went away. So this is what I wanted to say. That he was also one of the Musaddis, the same or something.
Jazakallah. Right.
Assalamu alaikum. I wish to seek some advice from you on Haququllah and Haququl Ibad. In general life, sometimes there are occasions when somebody is mentally set to attend some prayer meeting, to come to some regarding the Haququl Ibad. At the very moment, something rises up in the family, some relative comes along, he insists to sit down there. I always feel very difficult which one should take the precedent.
You know, number one, if you go deeper into the question, there is no possibility of a clash between Haququllah and Haququl Ibad. At occasions, Haququl Ibad become Haququllah. So apparently you are giving them preference over some so-called Haququllah. But it's impossible in the life of a Muslim to give preference to anything over Haququllah. In those situations, Haququl Ibad do become Haququllah because Allah wants you to attend to them. And they become the best form of worship. So this is why Hadhrat sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in response to various queries, answered differently at different times and described the best worship to be quite different at different occasions. At one occasion, when he was asked what was the best act to please Allah, the response was, go and serve your mother. At another occasion, the response was, go for jihad, this is the best. At a third occasion, he would say the prayers properly. All these were mixed together. There was no difference made between Haququllah and apparently Haququl Ibad, you know. The best acts sometimes became Haququl Ibad and sometimes became Haququllah. In the Qasri view, I mean. But in reality, he saw religion as one unity, one complete whole and entity which was not broken up. These are broken up and facilitated for our sake, so that we can further categorize them. But in the deeper sense, they are one and the same thing. The Haququl Ibad in Islam begin with Haququllah and emanate from Haququllah. This is why the Holy Quran tells us that Hadhrat sallallahu alayhi wa sallam first traveled towards God. And when he reached God, as close as no one else could ever reach or will ever reach, dana fatadalla. In this tadalla, the second tadalla, means then he descended towards the mankind. Hadhrat Masih Maud has written a most beautiful commentary of this verse, telling us that those who love God out of the love of the Creator must love the creation. It is impossible to totally separate the creator from the creation. Because he is manifested in his creation. And if you truly love the creator, you have to love the creation as well. You can't treat them differently with different yardsticks. So he explained that having loved Allah truly, it was a natural consequence that having realized the beauty of God, he had to love his creation and his creatures. So he suffered all his life for the sake of turning them to his object of love, that is God.
Yes.
That was the best service he could render them. So in Hukukul Ibad as well, the best service he could choose merged with Hukukullah, because the first choice was to call them to their creator and then also to serve them in so many other ways, but mainly because out of love for God. This again has been further explained by Hadhrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. Even at the lowest rung of this relationship between man and God and man, he tells us that if you feed your wife with one mouthful with your own hand and consider that you are doing it for the sake of Allah because He wants you to be kind to your wife, that act would become a worship. So that's the most ordinary happening of ordinary life, which nobody could ever conceive outside Hadhrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to declare to be a part of worship. This is the deepest jewel of wisdom which one attains from true knowledge, from true relationship and true conception, true relationship with God and true conception of His attributes. So here the whole thing is mingled into one, mended into one. The very act of love, which is generally rendered out of psychological compulsions, is turned into worship. So everything becomes worship in Islam if you acquire a certain attitude towards it. And there is then no clash between Hukukul Ibad and Hukukullah. And everything may also turn into Hukukul Ibad or selfishness, even if you are praying to God and apparently doing service to God, worshipping Him. It may become an act of exhibitionism and things, or anything else but a worship. So in this context you should decide, if love of God requires you in a certain situation to remain involved in a certain engagement and apparently sacrifice the worship which is inviting your attention to itself, if your decision is correct, then this is worship. If this decision is wrong, then you have had it. Then you have preferred the worldly affairs over religious affairs. So
That
you
is
have to be a
difficult.
very wise man to decide on all these occasions.
That was the problem.
And that wisdom comes from taqwa. It is not something which you are born with. If you raise the standard of your love of God and fear depending upon that love, then you will always be guided to the right decision. So pray to God to show you that wisdom.
Thank you very much.
Yes? Any other question, please? Yes?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah.
Hazrat Masih Islam's verse that ये निशान ज़लज़ला जो हो चुका मंगल के दिन.
ये तो एक लुकमा है जो तुमको खिलाया है निहार. Yes.
So does this indicate to, did it indicate to a shorter period of series of earthquakes during the time of promised Messiah, or it points to a longer period?
Of course, when the word nihar